Hey everybody, welcome to Critical Thoughts. I'm your host, Braxton Smith, and joining me today is Jake Bird, co-host. Today is September 30th, 2018. By the time we post this, it'll probably be the beginning of October. But today's subject, very touchy one, probably going to piss a lot of people off with this one, but it's discussing let me put this delicately, the hatchet job on Brett Kavanaugh. All right, maybe that wasn't very PC, but basically what we're going to be discussing in this, though, is how we're perceiving it. We're going to be talking about the politics, the philosophy, the ethics, the legals, implications of it all. And I really don't even know where to begin. There's so much to discuss on this. Is there any particular thing you want to start out with there, Jake?
I guess one of the things that has been really getting my goat is see a lot of comments where they're going like, innocence until proven guilty isn't a factor here, right? That this is just a job interview, or it's not a criminal trial, things of that nature. And getting to the underpinnings of things, the whole reason you even have, for instance, a burden of proof or burden of evidence to begin with is because you have a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. That's not just making sure that you have a fair trial, but do you even get to a trial to begin with? It's due process. And it's not just a legal concept, right? We have concepts of fair play that exist outside of that. We want the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Most people don't want to be constantly suspected of being a nefarious criminal all the time, so you shouldn't be doing that to other people. And to try to say somehow that the legal realm just on its own, without any influence from life and culture and people's understanding of morals, just came up with this idea of innocence until proven guilty on its own, and it has nothing to do with the rest of life and how you should conduct yourself, is particularly infuriating to me.
Yeah, and I think the obvious thing about this is that a lot of people know that being a victim of sexual assault is a big deal, and that seems to be what the conversation gravitates around. But it actually goes both ways. Women have this big concern with being sexually assaulted at some point in their life because statistically speaking they're more likely to be sexually assaulted. But on the other side of the coin, men are statistically more likely to be falsely accused of sexual assault, and so we really have to weigh both of them equally. I mean, this isn't a black and white situation like it's been painted out to be. There's two people that could definitely be have had something terrible have happened to them. You have Dr. Ford, who could have been sexually assaulted, but just as bad, I think, just as bad as someone having not only their career ruined but their life ruined, because you're talking about imprisonment if he is actually falsely accused of possibly imprisoned if he's falsely accused of sexual assault, which I don't think it would actually get to this. From what I've gathered from this whole situation, it just seems to be like the intent is just to prevent him from getting into office. There's not really, it doesn't seem like there's an intent to actually imprison this guy, because let's get real. All these accusations occurred over 30 years ago. There isn't going to be really much evidence to implicate him as the sexual assailant, if you will. And there's not really any way that he can prove that she is lying about it. But actually, before we lose too many viewers getting way into the depths of this, I wanted you to repeat what you were telling me about what you felt like possibly happened, like this scenario, like what that happened with Dr. Ford, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, well, again, you provided like two different scenarios. Either one could be a bad actor, but at least as far as I'm concerned with Ford's case, there's another option too. Maybe she was sexually assaulted, and through just memory misregulation because of drinking, because she has said that she was drinking that night, or just through trauma or something. She might not actually remember who committed the sexual assault, but she, either through hearing something about his confirmation process or having some vague notion of who he was, and already being a person that she didn't really politically respect or get along with, tied it to him. Because that's one of the things too. Trauma can cause people to want to try to find ways to short circuit what happened to move on with their life. And also, and it's a common thing, like with trials and stuff, that psychologists know you can't always rely on eyewitnesses and eyewitness testimony. Even in multiple cases, there have been murder trials through the innocence process where there's 3 to 5 eyewitnesses at a scene, and eventually that person that got falsely convicted, he gets released because DNA evidence clears him. And it doesn't have to be through any ill will or intent. A lot of people have this idea like the memory works like, a video file, right, on your phone or something. All you have to do is go to it, look at it, and go, oh, play. And most often the time, it's actually your brain has different pieces located throughout it's like building a puzzle. You got different pieces in your brain. Also, different emotions can be attached to them, and when you're trying to remember something, your brain is actually in a process of trying to piece all that together, given whatever your emotional state is at the time and how much time has passed and things like that. And just through errors in that process, things can happen as well.
Yeah, and it's also important to point out too, talking about the emotional, how emotionally you can your memories can change, and it's really not a far stretch if you think about it, where it's already been presented that Dr. Ford was a big time supporter of Hillary Clinton and absolutely loathes Donald Trump, and what a Brett Kavanaugh SCOTUS pick would mean is a victory for Trump. And so it's not really a far stretch to say that it's very likely that she just painted Kavanaugh's face onto this scenario in her own mind and imagined that he was actually responsible for it. At a gut level, I think best case scenario for Dr. Ford is that she at least was, well, I say best case scenario, so to speak, is that she was assaulted and she just painted his face onto that scenario. But I sometimes wonder if it happened at all. But she was in an environment where it definitely could have happened. But there's just so many other factors that are weighing heavily on this, so far as the fact that, for example, her father is part of the CIA, a high-ranking member in the CIA, and it's no mystery that it's not like a secret, rather, that the CIA obviously has their beef right now with Donald Trump. There's a lot of agents inside the CIA, and we saw at the FBI too with Peter Strzok, where they're trying their damnedest to get him out of office. So to me it seems like a hatchet job, because if we were really trying to get to the justice of this, first off, I think she would have pressed charges immediately, but people handle it differently. I know some victims that didn't ever press charges, but for them to actually wait until right before the hearing to release this information, that was a political move. There's no disputing that. Senator Feinstein had access to this information 45 days prior to the hearing, but chose to release it the day of the hearing. So what I'm seeing right now, it seems to me like they're just calling for a 1-week delay on this. But update, by the way, there's supposed to be a 1-week delay on whether or not they're going to actually vote for him. And in the meantime, FBI is supposed to do an investigation, in a week's time to find out if the rape really happened 30 years ago or whatever they're claiming now. I think they're claiming rape at this point. It was rolling around on a bed, and now it's / almost manslaughter. And now it's rape.
For Ford, it's still in the category of sexual assault, but there's like 2 other women that have now accused Brett Kavanaugh of doing something, and where was I going with that? I mean, I can't really go with the conspiracy end with the CIA for a reason of that, but you're right about the hatchet job through Feinstein and the way that was released. You can already go so much as to say maybe Ford was kind of innocent with that because she had just given the information over to her. And if I remember in the confirmation hearing, she even denied giving it out to the press, of all things. It's like, it was either going to be her, one of her staff, or Dr. Ford that had released it. So it's like, she's juggling with that. I'm pretty sure as far as the Democrats are concerned, it's wholly political, or for the most part political.
And it wouldn't be the first time they've done it. It's like, it's kind of one of those, it's not really popular to bring this up, but we saw it happen in our own state of Alabama with Roy Moore, and it was very successful. Had several women come forward and try to charge him with something or other. It was like 3 women, and then all of a sudden, he doesn't win the office in a huge upset. The baby killer wins, and then all of a sudden these women go away, and then he tries to hit them for libel, and they just completely disappear and withdraw, and they don't want anything else. Mission accomplished. And to me, this seems like a cookie cutter that we're going to see happen time and again. They're going to push this enough to where it's just going to be for 1 week, and then all of a sudden it's midterms, and they're hoping for, I guess, a blue wave. Blue wave hits, and then SCOTUS gets shut down until the next election happens, and then they select whoever for presidency, and so the Supreme Court isn't completely one way or the other. They actually have it a little more balanced out in their favor. This is just an obvious political move. How convenient. There's just so many red flags about it. But I guess I pretty much digress on the political aspect. I'm pretty much done with that if you want to move on to...
Yeah, since I already brought up the topic of innocent until proven guilty, another thing that they try to bring up along with, it's just a job interview thing is like, well, he's refusing an investigation, right? And it's like, you get the trope of, well, if he's innocent, he's got nothing to be afraid of, right? Which, they used to throw at the Republicans that were all law and order, and the police should have the powers to search anything and everything, right? That was supposed to be a fear with the Republicans, and I say it's a just fear, because anyone with power, they'll tend to have opportunities to abuse it. But now it's like, because it suits them, all of a sudden, we can throw that away. But on the other hand of it, it's also, in job interviews, when you deal with the federal government, you already go through an investigation into your background. And in Brett Kavanaugh's case, he's gone through it, at least 6 times? And if you're wanting to justify doing a supplemental investigation, all we have right now is an accusation, right? We have no other evidence besides that, because as far as I know, the 4 to 5 people that she's pointed to say, hey, they can corroborate what I'm saying, have outright denied it, and have no idea what she's talking about, what kind of party even happened. And it's not even saying that there's an absence of evidence. There's actually evidence to the contrary, which is the main problem with, you can say an investigation's alright, but you still have to have, again, justification, some burden of proof. And Some people also, again, with the legal aspect, go, well, there's different phases in a pretrial period, right? You get the accusation, and then you get the discovery, which is where the investigations and collecting all the facts happen. And we're supposed to go through this process before, we just outright deny anything. Well, we didn't outright deny anything. The funny thing about social media today is you can have things going on simultaneously, right? When they released that information, there were media going out there wanting to corroborate her story, wanting to give her those facts, wanting to find these supporters and try to, make the case for her, and it failed. And, to try to make an analogy for situations, if I just showed up to a police station all bloody and bruised and I go, someone assaulted me and stuff, yeah, there'd be cops rushing out there and they'd be asking me, okay, which way do you go and stuff like that, because I presented right offhand all these instances that support my case, at least to the fact that they probably need to go find someone. If I came running in and then there was someone behind me, let's say my mom or something like that, and it's like, oh, don't mind him, he's off his meds or something, then they're not just going to rush out and try to find someone. First, they're going to want to sit me down and clarify my story first. First, they're going to make sure that it's not a false claim. Or a 911 call. Help, please, there's a robbery. There's someone on the background going... More likely, they're going to show up to that residence to arrest someone than they are going to show up to wherever they're saying the robbery is, right?
Right.
There's context, there's situation, and then there's also the fact that in the world of more interconnected, interactive media, steps can happen simultaneously. And the facts of the case are, it's standing against her testimony, not for her testimony.
Right. And, something else, too, that's what kind of makes me wonder if she ever really wanted to do this to begin with. I think you brought up an excellent point. I get the feeling she really didn't. Her heart doesn't really seem to be in this. It does seem like the media pushed this. And we've seen the media do this time and again. They get these really divisive issues. It just gets people just exploding with outrage. It's like Black Lives Matter, for example, coming out. And they were able to take a situation where it can be disputed. It's not a black and white. Everybody agrees this is a messed up situation. Like we've seen with some shootings, for example. We've seen somewhere it's straight up, like no doubt about it, somebody screwed up and everybody agrees. They always they publicize these situations where everybody's divided on it. And it's like with, we saw with, for example, like with politicians, I've seen they do this too. Rather than just pointing out policy, for example, with Trump, where he was talking about, oh, we're going to build that wall. Not too many people were discussing that because, the fact that it's almost undisputed that, that's just not economically or, financially feasible. It's pretty much everybody can rally around that. Instead, let's bring up the fact that he says grab him by the pussy. And then you get everybody in uproar. You get everybody divided, and they're they're coming at each other. And with Hillary Clinton, we talk about her emails and all that, and there's a lot of stuff behind that that's pretty fishy. But let's just talk about the fact that she straight up said she wanted to go to war with Russia. She wanted World War III. That's something everybody can get behind. But no, don't look at that. Look at her emails. Something we're investigating, and we're chasing ghosts. And then we seen there was a what was it, a policy or something? I don't know. I'm kind of losing it. You fill in. I got nothing to say on that. There was one other one I wanted to connect on that one, but talking about like rapists, for example. Sorry to throw you on the spot like that, but talking about rapists, like for example, if really the media was so concerned about women, and the left were so concerned about women, where were they with Bill Clinton's all his victims? And these women weren't politically motivated. These women were wanting justice even afterhand. They're still, fighting to try and be heard, and some of them end up just being unpersoned by the Clinton mafia. So, you have situations like that. You have, for example, with the Kennedy, what was it, Ted Kennedy, had that chick that died in his car, like he killed her, and then like for some reason that got swept under the rug. That's because the whole nation would unify behind that, and we can't have that. We got to keep them divided. So let's, come up with a situation like this one where it's not black and white. It's so gray. It's a huge gray area. Keep the proles fighting amongst themselves. If not with race, this time you keep an eye on that too. It's always class warfare, race warfare, and now in this situation is gender warfare. That's how they keep us divided.
Yeah, there's a lot of division, and it always seems like focus on these false divisions, and as they're doing that, people aren't realizing one of the fundamental questions here is exactly how much weight does an accusation have, even unfounded, and to what extent does that get just thrown around, and what are the consequences for it? And most of my life, at least the way I grew up and I was raised, it was like you just don't throw that around. You want to have proof for your case, and you don't just threaten people or accuse them idly. You want to have, there should be some meat, some teeth to it. And now it's, it seems to be they're wanting it more and more just open to fair game, throwing it around. And for the short time, it will be very politically profitable for any side, right? If you can just throw accusations. But in the long run, it's completely divisive, and you can't really talk or communicate with people if all you have to do at the end of it is, well, you didn't agree with me, you must be a rapist, or you must believe in, you must have that inner predator within you, or something like that, right?
Yeah, and see, it goes both ways too, because now it's like, we see this, and on a subliminal level, like subconsciously, it does make it harder for people to believe other people. So, like, oh, she has a right to be believed, and then, like, she comes forward. I saw, like, with, for example, Roy Moore. That's part of what made me suspicious, is because you had all these women coming forward, and then all of a sudden they disappeared, just like with Trump. You had all these women coming forward, they couldn't stop them, and then they disappeared because they couldn't follow through, because it was all a sham. And so now, like, how am I supposed to be taking them serious? How is anybody supposed to be taking women seriously? And it's like, subconsciously, obviously I at least know to look at things on a case-by-case basis, but I'm going to be that much more suspicious in the future of people accusing other people. It's one of those boy who cried wolf. It's just like when they call people Nazis. Now people call Nazis all the time. Oh, that person's a racist, they're a Nazi. And it's like, you just blow it off. People just blow it off because it's like there's no weight to it anymore. There's no gravity about it. And something else that we mentioned in another video we're going to be posting. I wanted to talk about the ethics of it. Talking about how many people would you have to falsely accuse before it's justified to rightly accuse somebody. So say, example, you have 10 people, right? You got 10 guys. You got one of them that's the bad guy, right? But you have 9 other people that are innocent. Is it worth convicting those 9 just so you get that one guy? I mean, that's the whole point of the presumption of innocence, right? It's like, the only thing worse, I think, than, or at least, you don't want to make worse by the situation, I should say. I don't really know that falsely accusing somebody is worse than rape, but it's comparable with it, because you are also destroying another life. So, you don't want to make the situation worse by convicting people falsely. So, you want to be absolutely sure. It's better to let that one bad guy go before you, wrongly accuse 9 or wrongly convict 9 other people, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're also talking about it also at the level of the accusation stage, right? We're not even getting to the point of actually thoroughly finding out the evidence. And there's different levels for criminal and civil, and I guess people are wanting to more rely on the idea of the social realm for condemnation and stuff, and it's really tricky. I mean, you can say you don't want them convicted for any criminal crimes, but one of the most glaring double standards I remember is the OJ trial, right? Criminally, he was set free from murder, but in the civil court, because they have a lower burden of proof, he was charged for torts, for essentially ending the woman's life. And it's like, when you just look at it from the outside, how can you say he's both responsible and not responsible? You can put the adjective criminally and civilly right there, but if you've caused this injury and this harm resulted in death, that's kind of like one of the things with the system, and I wish that was a little bit more homogenized, at least to an extent, or it was a little bit clearer why that distinction can be so grave in those types of instances. But let's see, what's another issue with this? I don't know. I'm kind of coming up with a blank now.
Well, I would at least say that at least on an ethical level, I think we all perceive it as homogenous in that you don't want to drag somebody's name through the mud if they're innocent either. It's like, okay, you're not even convicting. You're just talking about ruining someone's reputation and career and possibly manipulating the outcome of an entire country, because you're talking about a supreme justice. This is like one of 9 people that are going to be deciding whether or not something's constitutional, which Kavanaugh is not exactly my number 1 pick. I guess I should have put that at the very beginning. If y'all remember, I gave him a 7 out of 10, because he's not, there's a lot of things I don't like about him. He was just the best pick, and that's the only reason we really ran with him. And instead of talking about the issues like he doesn't respect the 4th Amendment right, here we are talking about him possibly raping somebody, or what was it? Assault? I can't remember. The story keeps changing. Sexual assault. Let's just go with that. Good blanket
so far
term
staying
there.
Within the realm of sexual assault, but yeah, it's not about what he can actually do at the job, especially since this is supposed to be a job interview.
Yeah.
As one of the defenses of why we shouldn't have such high standards, but and that's another thing. Okay, if accusations are supposed to just quit your chances for any job interview, then oh my God, there's a lot of young teens out there that should just probably never. They're unhireable now. They're the untouchables. Let alone, I know there's been a lot more like criminal reforms now, like in Alabama, I believe it was around last year, passed a law that said if you don't commit any nonviolent felonies, you can win back some of your rights. Well, not win back, but, apply to get a lot of your rights restored, like voting, for instance. That's with a conviction. That's when they've done a felony, whether it's, we can argue the topic of victimless crimes, that's a side note, but with a conviction, we're having people where they're supposed to be able to participate again as citizens and hopefully get jobs and stuff, so there isn't recidivism. But you're wanting to say on the mere accusation, people should just shun them, should just do nothing with them, because, what are you going to do if you don't have a job?
Yeah, it just sounds to me like, I don't know, you said that, you're talking about on the mere accusations, they're being, hunted down and ridiculed and ostracized, and I was just thinking about the witch trials, and obviously a lot of those ended up with, I guess you would say, conviction of some sort. Oftentimes those trials were conducted by the public, and that's why democracies scare the hell out of me, because then you get these mobs that no longer, they don't even care, because it goes a notch beyond innocent until proven guilty, or guilty until proven innocent. They're like, oh, they're guilty, they have to prove their innocence. It goes beyond that. It's like, oh, even if they prove their innocence, it's too late. Like, as far as anybody will ever look at Kavanaugh, Dr. Ford could come out and say, you know what, I just realized it was actually this douchebag that sexually assaulted me. Yeah, it definitely wasn't Kavanaugh. I didn't even really know him until yesterday. She could come out and say that, and still at least 10% of the country is going to look at Kavanaugh like he's a rapist. At least.
Yeah, well, there's still two women, and he does have that kind of look about him, doesn't he? Or, well, we know men are trash, or, there's going to be some subset of people that are going to have thoughts like that.
But, yeah, I mean...
And to be even-handed, if she comes out and says, oh my gosh, I went through this traumatic event, and for some reason I'm associating it with Brett Kavanaugh, but it wasn't him, there's going to be some people on the other side there are going to go, yeah, she's just trying to say that now to save her ass, or, things of that nature, because she can't get evidence. And, it can go both ways.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, we're at 30 minutes right now. I think that's about all I got for this whole topic. There isn't really much else I wanted to discuss about, other than like things I'd like to see done. Like, for example, I've been hearing a guy named Owen Schroyer. He's on InfoWars. he brought up a brilliant strategy of why doesn't Trump just trade this guy out, do what he like to call the castling, swap Kavanaugh out with Amy Barrett. I think that'd be pretty good strategy at this point. Like, put him on the back burner, put Kavanaugh on the back burner, and say, okay, let's do a full-on investigation. Okay, here's a woman. Women are infallible. You got to vote her in, or you're sexist. Done.
Well, see, again, I'll say right now, my objection for that is the same reason I'm not liking the strategy right now from the politicians. It's very short-sighted, because if you give them that much ground, it's like, okay, it worked, right? If this is a sham, at least from the Democrats, we'll throw Dr. Ford out of this and just say they're trying to use it for their political gain. Well, there you go, right? You got the castle. Maybe next time, if you hit a little harder, get a few more accusations thrown in, maybe it won't just be a castle. Maybe it'll be a fold. Maybe it'll be a checkmate. And, I don't want the Republicans to start going, oh, hey, this is starting to look like a useful strategy. Let's take a page from the old religious right and try to have like morality courts and stuff. Well, they're obviously a person of moral ineptitude or corruption and stuff. We can't have them. We can accuse them. That shows their sin and shit like that. No, just don't. You can still have this supplemental investigation or whatever, but that. My main problem with it is where's the additional evidence? What is the pieces to the puzzle that you can put together that the FBI didn't have before, besides just an accusation? So far, we haven't had any, and with what time's gone through now and what seems to be the process extrapolated further on, I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
Maybe it'll happen with one of the other two women. Who knows? I don't know. But
yeah, it's obviously just a stall. It's not really going to go anywhere. It's just meant to keep him out for whatever reason. So final thoughts before we close this out?
Yeah, as far as how I would like to see things go, despite personal biases and stuff, I would love people just to go, okay, how should things actually proceed, right? We've got accusers, we've got defendants. What are the actual burdens of proof? If this was my loved one that was accusing, what would I want them to do to make sure that they got it through and would be beyond reproach? And if this was my loved one that was having to defend themselves from such accusations, what could we do? What would they need to do to make their defense beyond reproach? And go for it that way. Stop trying to do these little tit-for-tat games and overplay people's empathies.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. I actually saw an article where it's like, is an article saying how you can raise your child in a situation to prevent him from being Kavanaughed. And, you know, my own motto, the way I try to avoid all that myself is, you know, when women have their way of avoiding sexual assault, my way of avoiding being accused of such a thing is just my work strategy anyways at work to prevent from sexual harassment. I don't speak unless I'm spoken to, you know, and I try to avoid contact. So in eye contact, I pretend like they're not there. I know it sounds sexist, but it's like in this world.
Yeah,
with
you're
the way
pretending they're not there, Braggs. How dehumanizing.
you can't win. But you know what? I would rather you just think I'm a sexist, misogynist pig versus some rapey guy that can't keep his hands to himself.
You just need, and that's the funny thing, you know. God, how long ago were people making fun of Mike Pence because he wouldn't want to stay in a room alone with another woman unless it was his wife? You know, what options are you leaving?
Yeah.
You know, you're either going to be treated like Donald Trump or you're going to be treated and have to act like Mike Pence.
Yeah. And then there's Joe Biden, where you can just put your hands on whoever you want, regardless of age, and nobody's ever going to question it. Unfortunately, I'm not on that side of the aisle, so I don't have that luxury, and I just got to pretend women don't exist. But anyways, all right, so that's I guess that's about it. Yeah, we're going to be releasing another video here in a few days. It's going to be on equality or inequality versus inequity. We'll be telling you more about contests to come up from that one. Yeah, that's about it. You want to throw anything else out, Jake?
No, just hopefully, you know, some days I have more faith in humanity than others. Hopefully that faith will be restored in time. And thank y'all for watching.
All right, and thank you for tapping into Critical Thoughts, breaking through the white noise, bringing the media that matters.